Hey everyone, it's Leanne. Welcome to another video on my channel. Today I created a card using my own stamps that I made from hand. So I'm going to share with you how I made those stamps, and this is the card that I created. So first, supplies to begin, I have an A2 size folded piece of cardstock. This is just Staples paper. A piece of Neenah Solar white cardstock, and it's cut down about an inch off the height and width, I think. And then I went to the dollar store and I picked up these foam sheets. Now this is the key to making your own homemade stamps. So I picked up this pack and I think it was $1.25 or something. And then I have these stamp pads from Michaels. These are the Colorbox brand, and just some colors I had kicking around. So that's what I'm going to use to create my stamps with. And you'll also need a ballpoint pen. So I started with a ballpoint pen, but I actually change it in the video. So I'll show you what I do there. So I sketched out some concepts for my stamps, and I wanted to do kind of a rectilinear look and feel. I wanted to do birds, and I thought a little leaf would be a nice accompaniment to that. I love birds, so that's usually what I gravitate towards. So here I'm just doing a study on what I need to indent and what I need to leave non-indented. It has to be the reverse, because whatever you push down will be white, so whatever you draw into the foam with will be the reverse. So I wanted to make sure that the highlight on the eye of the bird went the right way. So I'm just going to get out my foam sheet here, and I picked yellow because that's my favorite color. No reason, really. It doesn't matter what color you use, but that's the one I went with. I took a look at my drawings with the piece of Neenah Solar white cardstock that I have, and I found that the size that I drew, that I sketched out here in my concepts, was about the size that I wanted for that leaf. So I just matched up the outline here, and I'm just retracing it. Another way you could do this, maybe if you had graphite, if you ever remember in public school, you would draw something with your pencil, like a really soft lead, and then you would flip it over and trace on the back onto another piece of paper and push that lead onto another piece of paper. You could transfer it that way. Or if you have carbon paper, that might work. I found it easier just to redraw it. It's not the most ideal, but it's a simple shape, so it was pretty easy to duplicate. So I'm taking the ballpoint pen now, and I'm pushing down the markings that I want to be white in my stamp, the negative space. So the stamp, the foam that I have is really thin. It's from the dollar store, so it's cheap, but it's really easy to push the foam down with the ballpoint pen, and it doesn't bulk at all. The pen really rolls it flat, so it really creates that sharp sort of contrast between the foam being risen and the foam being pushed down flat. It's not bubbling up or anything. Once I rolled over it really hard, it actually not very hard at all, and it pushed down. So this part was really easy, and it was kind of a fun art piece. So now I'm just using some handheld scissors and just fussy cutting it out quick and easy. And so I'm going to test this first. And so now you're going to see where I switch up from the ballpoint pen. Maybe you can guess what happened here. I didn't really think about this at the time. But yeah, so you're going to see in the test stamp, I have it all inked up, and then I just put a piece of paper over it so that I could press the ink down evenly with the stamp. And then when I lifted it up, I noticed the ballpoint pen ran in the ink. That might also be a factor to the type of ink I'm using, or that the pen, I didn't let it dry. I did this immediately after drawing it. So I tried to wipe off a lot of it, and then I came in with a Sharpie marker or Sharpie pen. I have, let me see if this has a name on it. It's like a fine point, ultra fine point Sharpie retractable pen. You could also maybe use this to draw with. So I went over and tried to cover up some of the ink just to prevent it from transferring. And so I thought I got a better impression here. A little bit of ink still came through, but I am working with blue, so I was okay with that. So now it's time to draw the little birdie. And the pencil I'm using is, it's made by Faber-Castell. It's a retractable pencil, just a push pencil like you'd probably use in school again. It's a 0.7 millimeter lead. And so it has a super fine point. And eventually on the bird, I used this Faber-Castell pencil to draw in the indents instead of using the Sharpie pen. I think the Sharpie pen would work equally well. Anything that has a fine tip and you can just make that indent in the foam, that's what you want. That's the goal to achieve. So I'm just sketching out my little bird, and I made him a little bit bigger. I thought that I wanted him a little bit bigger than from my drawing because I want him to be the center of my card, and I'm going to put him on a separate piece of paper. So I actually sketched him out the first time, and I did the eye wrong. I drew it the positive way, and so when I inked it, it was all backwards, and so I had to do it again. And this time I remembered that it looks funny on the drawing because the highlight of his eye is actually what's colored in, but that's the part that I want white. So I had to draw it again, and I remembered this time, and it does look funny when it's in the stamp form like this, but once you ink it and you see the reverse, then it all makes sense. And so I did these little patterns on his tail feathers and his little wing feathers, just very rectilinear shapes, and using the rectilinear also made it easier to cut out too, because there were a lot of straight lines in the edges. So I thought it was a fun kind of whimsical look. I've seen this art style like in the 60s in flat, solid, bright colors, and I always thought it was really fun. So I really liked this sort of effect. You could really, I mean, you could find inspiration online or even like coloring books and stuff, and just simple shapes to create your own foam stamps with. It's super easy. And the possibilities are endless, and you can make any size. So here is the impression of the bird, and I thought that he turned out pretty good. You can see the comparison there with the stamp. So now I'm ready to ink up my card and try making my very first card with my very first set of homemade stamps. So I'm going to start with the light blue, and I will put all the names in the description box below, and I'll include links as much as I can for all the products. So I'll put the names of the ink pads down below. I can't recall what they are off the top of my head at the moment, but I will put those in. So I'm using the lightest blue first. And what I want to achieve with this is I want to do a layered effect where the ink is creating different levels. So with those three colors, they're going to overlap. The stamps will overlap each other and create a semi-transparency. And you'll see the different layers, and it'll add a little bit of depth to the background pattern. Instead of just doing all the little leaves where they're not touching, I want them to overlap, so it gives that multiple layered look. So I'm coming in with the green next, and I'm being careful to overlap the leaves so I get that multi-layered look, but also to fill in empty spaces too, because I want it to look very balanced, but look like it's like an unintentional, but really it's the placement of the leaves is intentional, so I can fill up the card properly. And so I'm coming in with my third color, which is a dark blue. And when I stamped it, I think because I still had some residue on my stamp, it came out kind of a turquoisey color, and I thought it was really pretty. It actually looked really nice with the other colors. So I didn't put too many of the dark down. I did leave that for last, working lightest to darkest. And so now it's time to do the little birdie. So I'm using that dark stamp color again, and I'm putting him on a separate piece of Nina Solar White cardstock. And I'm just going to fix up the eye here because it is a fine detail and I wasn't able to capture it with my pen. So I'm just coming in with a pencil crayon or a colored pencil that is the same color as the ink of that stamp, and just defining the eye a little bit. And you can see here where it reads a little bit better. I mean, for the other parts, the details of the wings and stuff, if they're not perfect, that's okay. You still know it's a bird, but I wanted to make sure his eye was perfect. So now I have some circle dies from Michaels that I picked up. These are just a generic brand. I found a small one here, and I'm going to run this through my Sizzix Big Shot machine. And so there I have it cut out. Now I'm coming in with my gold Jelly Roll pen because I want to just add a trim to his border. So he looks more finished, I guess, with the cut edge. I think if I had a die that had a scalloped edge or some sort of decorative edge, then I might not need to add the Jelly Roll, but because I'm just doing the circle, I thought it would be a nice touch. And so I'm going to put him in the middle, you can see here. But I want to bring in that gold a little bit more to balance the card. So I'm going to put it on the perimeter of the back of my card. This is the A2 size folded cardstock. And so I'm just using my ruler and running it along the edges of the front side of that card. So this will match the little birdie piece and sort of marry those elements together. And so getting the position, I felt at this point I was close, but I needed something else. So I'm coming in with my Fiskars paper cutter. This is the, I think it's 7-inch. I'll link it below, but super handy. So I'm cutting some vellum, and my vellum is white. I wanted colored vellum, so I thought, hey, why not just use the ink pad and color it a little bit? And so this tinted the vellum enough where it had a different color and stood out, but it was great because the ink pad matches the colors in my cards, so it matched perfectly. That was a nice trick. So here I have it all set up, and I'm going to wait for it to dry. And so I waited about 10 minutes for it to set. And then I'm coming in with some craft glue to tack it in the middle. Because my bird will be going in the middle over top, you're not going to see that glue piece. Otherwise, I probably would use a different medium, maybe 2A tape or a tape roller or something. So I'm going to fold this over the back. And this piece I'm going to mount flush to the back of the card. So I'm just going to use some tape to hold this down because you won't see it when it's all put together. So I'm just using some Scotch tape. And then I have that ready. So I am just adding my tape roller here. And I'm going to mount this to the back of the card to get that center, just kind of eyeballing where I think center is and pushing it into place. And then I'm at the very end of my foam tape roll. I need to go shopping. I need to get more, but I had just enough to put on this little birdie. And I want to elevate him a little bit off the card because he is the focal point. He's the centerpiece. And so just adding a little more dimension here. Finding center again, just kind of eyeballing it. And then I push them down into place. Super easy. And so my card is complete. This was a fun card, and I didn't know what it was going to end up like when I started, but I'm really happy with the result, and I had so much fun making these stamps. Hopefully this inspires you to give it a try too. Maybe you have some ideas of stamp sets or shapes or anything you could try. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you're notified as I post more videos. Thank you so much for watching.